Yo, what's going on, Dragon Ballers? Welcome back to another video. We are talking about the ban list again today, and I mentioned in the first video I did when they first released the new errata list that I wanted to do a discussion video going over the cards that the community wants banned or is discussing to be banned, and they released the ban list a little bit before I can get that out to you guys. So I kind of want to go back and do this retrospectively where we discuss each of the cards, see if there's merit to banning them, see if there's merit to errataing them. And I'll preface this by saying I think Bandai, I didn't think they were going to do an errata list because they've been saying a lot of the time they want to just ban things. They don't want to errata anymore. It's not clean, it's sloppy, it's tough for new players, things like that. And they decided to do an errata list, and I think they missed a lot of opportunities. If they were going to do an errata list, I think they should have done a lot more. Not to say I'm not happy with what they did. I think they did do a really great job, but I guess we'll get into that when we get into the cards. If you're new to the channel, guys, make sure to subscribe. Hit that notification bell so you can stay up to date with awesome Dragon Ball Super content like this. Looking for a Dragon Ball Super community to get in touch with, make sure to check out the Discord in the description below. Excellent group of people. Finally, guys, if you'd like to help out the channel, there's 3 ways you can do that. Number 1, the Patreon. Number 2, my affiliate links to TCG Player and Bearded Collectibles for all your Set 8 needs. Number 3, guys, there's a join button in the description below. That is how you can join the YouTube channel membership program. Directly helps the channel out a lot. All that stuff helps out a lot, guys. Really appreciate each and every one of you. With that being said, we will get into this discussion. So, World Peace, we're starting with this one. Not the one I would have typically started with, but this one we know got errated to say it only revives 3 cost and less. The effect you're reading on screen right now does not matter. When you activate it for 4 energy, you revive a 3-drop or less. So effectively, they are making you pay 4 for a 3-drop to get from your drop area. Overcosted. The card is, in my opinion, not really worth playing anymore. Any strategy you would go for World Peace could probably be made better by some type of assemble the squad strategy. Look at like Shenron Gogeta. That's probably the prime example. Ramp is effectively dead. They did the same thing to the Purunga leader. It only brings back 3s and less, which means like Shenron, Purunga Veggies is still a very viable deck. Taco Salad, as the 3xG guys call it. And they also errated Plea for Salvation because it's basically a green World Peace for only green battle cards, but that can bring out like Victory Strike and Kaioken Goku, things like that. But effectively, this card should have been banned in my opinion. The errata is just not worth it. Like, I don't know, I think I'd rather, if I go to my LGS, right, and a new player buys the Shenron Structure deck, I think I'd rather just tell them like, hey, that card World Peace that's in the deck, it's really, really strong. It actually got banned and constructed, rather than, oh, well, you can only bring back 3 or less, and have them ask you a million times later what it does because it's not written on the card, and they have to remember, when can I activate this? Is there any energy restriction to it? Nope, it's just 3 or less. That's pretty clean, pretty annoying. I do kind of wish they just banned World Peace, but they did go with an errata system, and they could have done a lot more with it. But I am happy that they decided to hit, Ramp as a deck. Next up, we have the Shenron leader. Again, a lot of people are talking about banning this card because the effect to give triple attack is pretty insane, to be honest. I mean, the thing was, at least in my opinion, I know the opinion of a lot of other people, Shenron was the better ramp leader than Purunga, solely because you can turn any battle card you control into a game-ending threat. And that is really frustrating to deal with as someone who's trying to, like, be aggro against Shenron, because, typically if you're going to aggro against Shenron, you're going to rip through a lot of your life, maybe bring yourself down to 3 or 2 life. Try and kill them before they kill you. It's actually funny, I played against Frank Miller at Nats, and he was playing Shenron Ramp, I was playing my yellow Gohan deck. He ended up Ultra Instinct playing that against one of my threats, so just 20k, pretty much vanilla after you use it, and he actually ended up giving it triple attack and crit to kill me with in one of our games. Pretty funny, pretty unfortunate that this leader can just turn anything into a threat. I think it is really overtuned. I kind of wish this leader would go, but doesn't seem like the way to go just because it is Shenron. It's one of the mainstays of the game and of the franchise, really, and it's the head of a structure deck. So again, it is tough to hit those structure deck cards because it's a barrier to entry for new players. You basically make the structure deck irrelevant if you get rid of the leader, so I can kind of understand that. Next up, Relentless Speed Janemba, another card a lot of people wanted to get the axe. A lot of people also call for an errata. Like, I know Pat O'Neill wants the errata to say on the Unawakened side, when you attack your opponent, they only mill 1 card, and that could be okay. I would love to see this leader get banned, though. Like, I do wish this leader got banned, just because it's been so polarizing in the previous formats. Like, the way it's been is you've either built a deck to beat Janemba, or you've built a deck to beat Gogeta, Shenron, but the decks you play can't typically consistently beat both, unless you're like on Broly Head of Mastery or Broly Victory Strike, depending on the format, right? Typically, the case has been if you can beat one, you can't beat the other. And I'm not a huge fan of like such polarizing decks. I really don't like, you know, these auto loss type of things. We do have a lot more anti-mill cards now. I'm not a huge fan of the combo Guardian cards because they require you to discard a card from your hand to activate and put 3 back into your deck. I'm not a fan of that huge discard cost because this leader can still very viably just kill you outright. You know, if you're playing kind of laid back and just taking a lot of life to try and aggro them out, they can easily kill you with a Champa and a lot of pseudo combos and super combos to kill you. I'm really not a fan of this deck either, and I know that might sound like a bias thing, and it is partially a bias thing, but I think player happiness does play a part in what should be banned or not. Like, you know, Super Shenron, I don't think it was fair. I think most people don't think it was fair, but an argument that people gave was, you know, it's a fun, powerful deck, why can't we play it? But the other side of that was it creates an incredibly unfun player experience. I don't think Janemba is on that same level, but I do think it's just a very dull deck to play against. You know, it's just like, okay, cool, attack, you're never going to take a damage because the deck is ultra defensive. Every card I play is going to get counterplayed. That is frustrating after a while. I do understand, you know, control decks and, you know, defend the castle decks need to exist. So I would like this leader to go. Not necessarily sure if that's the right call. Let me know in the comments below what you think about that. And any of these picks, guys, let me know what you think in the comments below for sure. Broly the Awakened Threat. Another leader people were considering to ban or potentially errata to his untap a card ability to be once per game, right? Or just a yellow or green card. That was another one I heard going around. This leader, I think it's okay. Like, it's probably the strongest leader of the, I don't know, typical leaders. Like, you know, when I say typical, I mean like regular win condition, I guess you can say. Like Shenron, I would call atypical because it's a Shenron leader, gives triple attack to anything. Janemba, alternate win condition. So Broly being the most typical leader that wins the game by, you know, just reducing the opponent's life to 0 in the most standard way possible, I think it probably is the strongest. Do I think it needs to go? Probably not. Broly does have a lot of weaknesses, especially towards aggro. Like Skillless at Nationals was just like cleaning up Broly players left and right because they couldn't deal with 30k beat stick, right? Like Broly does have these types of weaknesses. I don't necessarily think this leader needs to go, but again, let me know what you think. Next up, Gogeta Hero Revived and Kaioken Son Goku, cards that I thought could kind of go on the same slide because they're very, very similar. So a lot of people wanted both these cards to be banned. Personally, I don't think that's really feasible, just for a few reasons, one of which Gogeta just got reprinted in the Magnificent deck, so I don't really think you can ban it after just reprinting it like that. Not that that's not like a hard limit, but I don't think it's really a smart business move on Bandai's part. Kaioken is also very, very new, and in the decks it's meant to be used in, it's really not that oppressive. Like if you play Clash Goku, this is really susceptible to Champa the Trickster, Mutaito, things like that. Now that Ramp is dead, Kaioken Son Goku theoretically shouldn't be as easily abusable, so that should be okay. The other thing too, what I would have liked to see on these cards was actually an errata to ultimate. Put an ultimate tag on Kaioken, put an ultimate tag on Gogeta 7. That would have been really cool. And this is one of the examples of why I think the errata list they went with doesn't necessarily do as much as it can. Like if they were going to go with the errata route and not go with the ban limit route, I think that putting an ultimate tag on Gogeta and Kaioken could have been a very, very good idea. But they decided not to go with that logic, I guess. And maybe they didn't think about it. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe they believe that, you know, things will shift around now with the errata list. I'm sure it will. You know, I think both these cards are going to be far less abused without Ramp being a thing. But we did see in Brian Samuel's winning Broly list, he did main deck Gogeta 7 as a one-of, so kind of fitting to be an ultimate in my opinion. Still going to be a really, really strong card going forward. Shenjita, I don't necessarily think is going anywhere. Next up, Son Goku, the Awakened Power, Victory Strike. This card, for a long time, people have been calling for it to be banned. I don't think that's at all feasible, mostly because of the price tag. And, you know, the companies that make these games, they're not supposed to influence the secondary market. They're not really supposed to keep those things in mind per se, but this is a card that if banned would cause probably a very, very large uproar. You know, all the people that have invested $200, $300, $400 into this card, if it were to get banned, I think it would be a very, very big problem for the community, for, like, you know, the toxicity levels, if you will, of the game. So I think it's probably best this card stays in. And don't get me wrong, it is a stupid card. It's very annoying to deal with in certain formats, but I will say I think a lot of decks are kind of being able to adapt to play around it, especially with all the new cards we're getting in the new sets, especially all the new counterplays. I mean, think about Mutaito. This even gets hit by Crusher Ball, Champa the Trickster, things like that. If you tap the height of mastery beforehand, that works just as well, unless they're a Broly leader. But if you're pressuring them, they have to awaken early, and there's a whole bunch of ways to play around this, is basically what I'm getting at with this rambling. So I wish, you know, it wasn't as powerful as it is, but I don't think you can necessarily ban it. I think it kind of has to stick around. Objection. This is another interesting card to talk about. Not totally sure where I fall in line with this one, if it should be banned, if it should have been limited, if it should have been left alone. I think I'm okay with it being left alone, especially with the world peace errata and, you know, the other erratas that followed. Objection, in my opinion, is fair because it costs 2 cards to ramp 1, right? It costs the objection itself, and it costs another card in your hand to be put in your energy, so it is a neg 2. It never really seemed like that in Shenron, because Shenron pluses 2 to 3 to 4 every single turn, so that neg was severely mitigated by that type of thing. But in every other deck, Objection seems like a much more fair card, so I'm more inclined to think that this card should be left alone. I don't necessarily think everything on this list should have been banned or limited, but I do think this one would probably be, I think it'll be fine going forward. I mean, Objection really wasn't played until Shenron came around, so I don't think it's too much of a problem, especially now that Shenron ramp especially has been hit a bit. This will still see play in Shenjita. It'll still allow them to do Gogeta things on turn 4, which kind of annoying, but again, not as bad as it once was. Mirror Critter Absorbed, another card people have been talking about for several sets now. Ever since it came out in set 4, essentially people have been talking about getting rid of it, because when this thing attacks, it is a guaranteed damage if it does not get negated. We used to have Battering back in the day. That means this was a guaranteed damage even if they had the negate, but now it's like you can only really use Cooler if you're in a yellow leader. And of course, this card is heavily abused with the yellow Broly leader we talked about earlier. That alone, that combo right there, Mira and Broly, might be the reason why people think Broly needs to be banned. It's a bit overtuned, because resetting this guy in tandem with a Further Introduction Champa or a Swift Retaliation Cooler, that's an almost guaranteed 3 to 4 damage, which is very annoying to deal with. But I don't think you could necessarily ban this card, because then Toa becomes theoretically unplayable. It doesn't have a true win condition, a true boss monster. I do wish this was errata to only getting the entire effect with a black android or Toa leader. That would have actually solved a lot of headaches if they just put that on there, because, you know, you only get the one effect when you Union Fusion it, but if you restricted them both to Android leader or Toa leader, I think this would have solved every single problem with the card. For some reason, another oversight, another missed opportunity with the errata list, in my opinion. But again, I do sometimes like this as a generic card, but I do see where it is too powerful, so I do wish those erratas were put in place. Xeno Button, another card a lot of people are calling for it to be banned. I am actually very happy this is not banned. Again, partially biased because I did play the Yellow Gohan deck at Nationals. I think that deck's very fun. But what I think is, I think defensive untap is generally okay. I know that, like, a lot of people think that Bardock Raider Warcry for essentially free on defense is pretty degenerate. I kind of disagree with that. I think defensive plays are something that are evolving in our game right now, with all the counter plays, all the negates, all the things we're getting recently. And the way I put it on Facebook the other day was like this: if red is allowed to have Topo and essentially just shut off my turn, or yellow is allowed to have Nimbus and essentially shut off my turn, I think blue is allowed to have Xeno Button to play some value defense on the clapback. Now, I know that obviously multicolor brings a very complicated nuance into that situation. It makes it a little bit more complicated, because that means that almost every color has Xeno Button if every color gets a dual color with blue. But again, I do think it's just generally okay. Like, there are specific sideboard cards that go against this. Like, you know, if blue red ever became a thing, TN hits red leaders. Against green and yellow, not so much, but there are ways to deal with it. And Raiders Warcry can be played around, so I don't necessarily think this is the worst thing. I think it's perfectly okay this card was not banned. And overall, those are going to be the cards I wanted to talk about for the ban list review. These are the cards that I feel like most people have been discussing. If I missed anything, let me know in the comments below. I was really trying to rack my brain to make sure I hit everything, but again, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments below what you think. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. You know, I have very mixed feelings about how they handled the errata list. I think I talked about it mostly in the first video I did with the Porunga thumbnail and stuff. But like, I really like what they did. I like how they hit ramp. I just feel like a few things here and there were missed. I talked about in this video. Again, I think Bandai's doing a great job with the game, and I think we're only going up from here. But yeah, I mean, they must have some behind the scenes wumbo jumbo that tells them, you know, okay, everything's gonna be fine. And I pretty much do trust them, because ever since, like, for most of the game's life and since set 5, they've done right by me, and they've made me think that they really do know what they're doing. They're learning a lot, so really happy about that, guys.